Hello, Eileen.
Hello, Thomas. Really nice to have some time together. How are you today?
Good. Starting my day.
Mhm.
Good.
Mhm.
And you?
Yeah, same. I taught my first Qigong class this morning already, well,
Yeah.
2 hours ago. So it feels like the body is awake and the mind is ready to go.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I was wondering, this is really the first time we meet, and I think there are different overlaps in our work.
Mhm.
And I was really interested in hearing more about your latest book, The Politics of Being. And especially if you speak to politicians and to citizens at the same time.
Mhm.
Is it like the politics of being as a metaphor, or is it a generic kind of field of address?
Yeah, indeed. I think it's trying to frame a new field of research and action, looking at what is a wisdom-based approach or spiritual approach to development, and basically finding in my research what has been already mentioned by the interreligious movement, for example, or in the Earth Charter, is basically changing the bottom line of our societies away from having or economic growth to being, or we could say collective flourishing. And I explain, how we can build that kind of political agenda, that kind of vision for our societies, but especially what it means very concretely in many sectors, in terms of public policies, and based almost exclusively on existing examples. And so it's a vision of how we could organize societies in all different areas to promote the human flourishing, and and yeah, in a way that does not only have to do with governments, but companies, civil society also have an important role to play to in all our systems, right?
And when you speak of that change, do you see like the change starts in one place specific or on different, like, for example, in the individual or in the organization or in the government? Or is it like a movement that you see happening through all the layers at the same time? We empower a bit here and then this affects there. And then how do you see that?
Sure, everything is interlinked. Sometimes what we hear about people who believe is this kind of shift of consciousness needed. Sometimes there is more of a individual approach, like, and where you have people going through their own personal transition, and at some point this should permeate in societies and institutions. And my so, this is an important part of the story, of course. But my focus was, okay, what does that mean when it starts to influence the institutions of our societies, or laws and policies, and how can we design such laws and policies so that we can facilitate this cultural evolution? I even think it's a kind of collective spiritual evolution. And yeah, so my focus is more on these aspects. I believe, there is what's more systemic with all the crises that we are facing is that they all arise from the same kind of mindset or cultural paradigm, mainly that from modernity, with some specific value, individualism, materialism, reductionism, anthropocentrism, etc., etc. And this is we need to evolve that culture, that mindsets or worldview, and for this to happen, we can't rely only on personal evolution. I'm also a social scientist. I have a PhD in ecological economy. And I do believe, that us as human beings, we are shaped by the society we live in. So can we instead, and the problem is that nowadays, our vision of human nature is very influenced, over the last 2 centuries by economic thinking, and in particular the vision we would be all rational and selfish, competitive beings, which is false. But and when we design our institution based on that assumption, we tend to reinforce it. So the idea is really rather to design institutions that bring out the best of human qualities and values, so that we can make this great transformation, collective transformation, in a few decades, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah, what I taste in my participants in Qigong workshops and classes around nature and looking at consciousness, it's that people are really eager for these changes to happen. There is a tiredness of the old paradigm, a tiredness of the old structures that indeed no longer work, a yearning for something to change, but somehow like collectively, how do we do that? Like this sense of, so what is this? How do we start shape shifting the structures? And I think it's really, I mean, even people don't like the word paradigm shift. It's like, we've had enough, and it's not fast enough, those kind of sense of despair. So I'm really curious with developing my Wild Soul Center to look at new structures of organization and community and education, perhaps. How can we shift from that old school thinking in which we all grew up, acknowledging something new is needed, to dream into those structures in a way that also doesn't break, that kind of transitioning. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first, I think the important thing is to be able to recognize where are the seeds of this new paradigm, and what bring these things, the new values, we could say, and what bring them together into a kind of new narrative, and what are the models in societies, in policies, that can support them. So I think what a lot of my work has been trying to put clarity on that, so that we can recognize, the right seeds we want to grow, and have a vision of what they can mean together in practice. And I think often they are viewed as isolated. And what I show is, when we highlight the inner aspects, or the spiritual, even we could say, dimension of it, we can see that they're coherence, and they are part of a new story, a new vision of progress. And a lot, basically what I've highlighted, systemic complex thinking, the fact nature or life as a template, to follow, like in the regeneration movement, for example, happiness, empathy, compassion, love, or culture of peace, culture of partnership, mindfulness, and what I call mystery, which is the like a more conscious, evolved civilization would pay more attention to the mystery, and including through science. So all of this, we hear people talking about all these different bits, but they rather feel often unconnected. And I show, they are presenting together a new story, like a new vision over, time-old questions about that, every culture has to answer about, what we are as human beings, where do we come from, how does the world work, etc. What does progress or fulfillment looks like, etc. And when you look at, and all these values have now become subject of science, so which can tell us how to cultivate them, not only on the individual level but also at the collective level. No, basically, this new story, I would say, highlight the importance of first, that we are relational being, and we are we are being fulfilled in relationships through connection to others, through connection to nature, and through connection to self. And the real healthy and how do you say, when we flourish, we tend to be more in service of others, no? And that's a kind of theory of change when we can understand that if we are even better as human beings, we can be better in societies and within the Earth community. So yeah, so that's a kind of a new vision over human nature. So we're not emphasizing more the altruistic potential, and the more healthy we are, the more flourishing we are, the more we'll tend to serve the common good. While the whole story would see human beings more as selfish, competitive, and trying to seek more power, money for themselves. So that's something we, and more, if you look at the science, you start to see that this does not really is not sustained by science, and that that's where science meets wisdom. A lot of these insights you can find also in many wisdom traditions.
Yeah. Yeah, when you speak, it reminds me of a concept in Qigong or Taoism. It's called the three treasures. And that's the three treasures of body, heart, and mind. They are inside us internally, and they're external treasures as well. So the body relates to the earth, the heart relates to nature, and the mind relates to the universe or the cosmos. So I'm just seeing these kind of six as a kind of dance. And I think some traditions are really strong in mindfulness or body practices or nature conservation. Maybe we need to start to bridge all six more diagonally and horizontally and as a practice, because I was reminded of the Socratic art of living that goes long back. So that asks, what are the good values to live by for culture and for the individual? So I think you're in a really long tradition of thinkers there.
Yes, I mean, I refer to the Platonic transcendentals. I don't know if that's coming from Socrates, but truth, goodness, and beauty. So there is a long, and which has been seen as a template for the good society, and even later on, the Catholic Church said these were at the image of God, basically reflection of God. So indeed, all these highest values are kind of connected to some kind of absolute, which we could call God, and yeah, so it's not something new to say that this should be indeed the way to progress. I'm highlighting the new values that I found because they seem more relevant for our times, and there's new science developing, etc. But this kind of thinking is not at all new, and it's just almost obvious, but definitely we have completely lost track of using them as a compass for societies. I think this is what we really need in our societies have lost their compass, because economic growth it's not an end in itself, it's just a mean for something else. And I think what we have lost is the capacity to discuss ends, because especially in our societies, secular, modern, etc., we have take out religions out of the public sphere, and there's lots of reason for that, but we have lost with that what I call spirituality or wisdom, and the capacity to discuss what are the kind of ends we should that is worth pursuing. So we're just following economic growth, technological progress, but we have no idea of what this should be really used as a mean for. So because they reflect this absolute, I call these values spiritual values, And another way to think about it is they naturally emanate from an awakened person, or they can tend to develop with spiritual evolution, which, when I talk about spirituality, I use a very simple definition of being. To me, being is becoming who we are and the best version of ourselves, we could say. So, we get true to our own essence, and we tend to manifest these higher human values, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I was wondering, in our emails, you mentioned that you do some weekly work at Plum Village, the monastery of Thich Nhat Hahn. Can you say more how that influences your thinking and your own practice?
Sure. So I live next to Plum Village, the monastery of Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh in the southwest of France. We have been here with my family for the last 9 years. So it's very much part of our daily practice. And, the emphasis of this practice is to bring mindfulness into everything we do, not only sitting, but also walking, eating, meditation, even, my to-do list is called working meditation list. So I try to, see my work as not separate from my practice. And when I listen to someone, I can also, make sure to really listen deeply and be really there, and even use, the awareness of my breathing, for example, to really be there. And yes, it has been a very important practice and teachings. Thich Nhat Hanh emphasized applied spirituality or engage spirituality. And it took me 10 years to write this book, so there have been a process to digest a lot all these ideas to come to the essence that is relatively simple. And I've been doing that, reflecting on all these ideas while meditating and listening to teachings here in Plum Village. And many of these values I've mentioned as universal, they're also very present in each teaching. Life, understanding, or understanding of interbeing or interconnectedness, happiness, love, peace, mindfulness. All of that is really something we get to contemplate a lot.
Yeah. I remember I was in Plum Village for 6 weeks in 2005, so Thich Nhat Hanh was still alive. I met him 2 or 3 times in the Dharma teachings, and it was just such a beautiful early start of the day every day, and starting with the like meditation right through, like even the sitting meditation, and then cleaning your bedroom meditation, cleaning the toilet meditation, and then eating. And you already felt so connected to the cycles of life, I guess, by the time you had breakfast. So I've also tried to look at things to distill from that practice, like the gratitude for the food, and really contemplating where the food comes from and where it grew, and that it received the rain and the sun, and who tended it and who harvested and prepared it. And these things, they seem so incredibly simple, and at the same time so hard to remember in our fast life. So I was wondering, in ways, how can we pause to remember? And I think that is big part of the mindfulness practice, but I always have a hard time with the word mindfulness, because I think, where's the body? It's really interesting because I'm such a body person. And I know it is about the presence in the moment, and that happens with the whole body, no? But the emphasis on mind still grates a little bit. I don't know how that is for you. Body
Yeah, I
presence.
want to know the wording. It takes some time also to get translation from to English. But we talk about mindfulness of the body, and indeed, when you stop, for example, because you hear a bell, there's a lot of bells ringing to come back to ourselves, and the first thing is we come back to our bodies, no? So we and as we breathe and come back to our breathing, it's also a way, the breathing connecting the body and the mind. So yeah, no, I think it's really embodied mindfulness. There's some yeah, a lot of teachings and practices on that. So yeah, and the fact that, for example, the fact that we practice a lot walking meditation, this is definitely an embodied practice, right?
Yeah. I remember when I was there was a young nun who had been a dancer. I don't know if she's still there. And so I'd been a dancer, and in the time we were allowed to talk, we did have some talks about being present. And I said, don't you miss it to just, like use your life force in a different way, or run through the fields. That was what I did on the Mondays when you have the kind of day to yourself. I was going out in the fields and dancing around the trees. And actually, she said, there is such a bliss in the stillness that I don't need to do the pirouettes or the arabesques or the, the kind of... So there was that integration of everything the body can do in that sense of still arriving. And I did appreciate that teaching that I received from her. And at the same time, I'm wondering, we also have different personalities. So to kind of honor that sense of presence in movement or in exuberance or in ecstasy, perhaps. That there might be different flavors. I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah, I mean, myself, I'm very open to many different traditions, and I refer even explicitly, to this inter-spiritual perspective. And I think, every tradition will shed lights on different things. And while we do need some coherence about, what we are trying to look deeply into, in terms of insights, but I do think everyone needs also to find the practices that better suit oneself, right?
Yeah.
So myself, I know you were referring to Qigong, so that's something I practice also, and I think there have been also some contact points with the Zen tradition, in particular, the emphasis on the Ara or Tangtian, which, but what we say sometimes is often in Zen tradition, there is no physical techniques about how to find it and how to cultivate it. So, the teacher just say, get to your Ara. But in my practice in Qigong and Tai Chi Chuan, we do have specific practice to get in touch with that, and I think there are great teachings connected to the importance of the Ara Tangtian in Zen traditions. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. That's interesting how Zen has a different understanding of that. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, and for you, the role of nature in all this, may you say more?
Well, that has been to me the starting point, I would say, of my spiritual journey. When I met some chamans in Mexico, where I lived for a couple of years and tried to learn from this tradition. And then I started to work for nature conservation, etc. So this has been very important for me. And now I live in the countryside, so this is something I can really close to nature in a very, I'm not sure if I can almost call it a village or just a few houses really in the middle of natural landscape. So yeah, definitely very important for me. Source of nourishment, of balance, and yeah, what could I say? I really enjoy here in Plum Village, the walking meditation where we walk in mindfulness and in the forest. And yeah, I found that, the ability to develop that kind of presence in nature can be very, very deep. And I would say my own Tai Chi Chuan Qigong practice, has a lot about attuning, right, to nature and being able to harmonize body and mind, and the flow within with, the flow of nature. So yeah, that's been definitely important for me.
And in the politics of being, does
Mhm.
nature have a voice in developing that?
Yeah, very important one indeed, because the way I conceptualize even, being as a main goal for societies, these include all living beings. So the rights of nature are very much part of this framework. And I have a chapter dedicated to nature, which I emphasize more what this change of paradigm looks like in that field, and being, just recognizing that we are part of nature, and nature is alive and have some rights. And I even go, into the I've been in touch with native traditions, which emphasize, the need to nourish energetically nature in different, sacred sites, for example, through rituals, offering. And I think this, uh, really connects with that vision of a living nature, which, as our human body, let's say we are, for example, if we receive acupuncture, we activate, certain energetical centers or channels, etc. Well, that's the same for the earth, which I think is a living body of which we are part. And it's great to see, more and more countries recognizing that and recognizing the rights to nature, and which, leave us with some important questions about, putting some limits to our, human rights, we could say, and leaving us with a question, what do we, if we want to, let's say, build another dam or something, is that something we really need to fulfill our needs, rather than just assume we can do, destroy whatever we want on this planet. Rather ask the question, or what do we really need to be well as human beings, which I think is, an important question we need to come back to, rather than just following, the logic of economic growth and basically destroy, one by one, almost all ecosystems.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like your politics of being and my Dancing in the Muddy Temple, a book I wrote 3 years ago, also have a lot of crossovers in terms of consciousness and nature and practice and care and community. And yeah, it's interesting from different perspectives of anthropology and dance and economics and nature that we come to a similar place of realization that some change is needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, I think whatever entry point you choose, you come back to, which I think is just wisdom, no? That's why, my question was, how do we apply that wisdom to our or social issues and, politics, etc. And yeah, I've been studying a lot of different traditions. I think basically once uh, the wisest people just come to the same conclusions, and I think it's time for us to apply that kind of worldview to the challenges of our times. I think that's what the side guides, the our times demand is for, bring that kind of wisdom, spiritual perspective to the way we are organizing ourselves as societies.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And if you could be in the shoes of someone who is listening to our conversation, what would you say are one or two things that you would encourage people to do to not give up hope, I think is a big one, to create a sense of belief that we can do this together?
Mm-hmm.
What would be
Yeah, well, I think it's very important to understand, the dynamic we are in, where, destruction and creation basically work together. So we have to understand that, there's a destruction of an old system, but just and there is this illusion about all ways of functioning which are needed to go deep and be able to address, you know, the real root cause and, you know, basically transform ourselves personally, but also collectively. And, you know, this is necessary and this is coming, and we have to understand, you know, it's part of the destruction we see is part of this process. And the most important thing is that we will be able to give birth to this new culture, civilization, and everybody has a role to play in that. You know, we are here for everybody has reason to be here, and it's part of this plan of transformation. And I think everyone has to work on oneself to understand what's his role in this and how he can best support that transformation.
And if you were thinking of us collaborating in some way, or if you have any questions for me, yeah, I mean, those are two different questions.
Sure. So maybe you can tell about more about your Wild Soul Center. No, I think that you have in France. How do you work? It'd be interesting.
Yeah, thank you. So far, it is a space that happens online and that I take with me wherever I go. So it brings together there are 5 rivers flowing through the soul center. Movement, energy work, working with archetypes and stories, nature immersion, nature connection, rhythms of nature, and spirituality. I'm making this cycle because they're in a wheel. They're movement, they flow into each other, movement, energy, archetypes, nature, and spirituality. And for me, these are doorways or portals into what matters, into our meaning, into our health, into healthy connections, and I love the word flourishing that you used a few times, flourishing communities. So we can enter the depth, if you like, or the place of creation through any of these lenses. So people who are familiar with working with Reiki, for example, they might be very, very familiar with energy work. Or people who come from shamanic tradition, they might be more immersed in nature, or from an ecological tradition. Or people who are working with storytelling, they come in from archetypes and symbolism and imagination. And for me, these 5, they give a really good all-round invitation to address all parts of our being, and in ways that we can create meaningful community together. So really, I've only left my university job 3 years ago, and I've had to learn so much about entrepreneurship that it only now feels that I'm understanding what is needed in a way, what is the medicine for our Western culture at this time, what are the skills I can bring to this, and then how I can create this in a virtual shop in a way. So that people see the shop window and they go like, oh, let's open this window and see what magic is possible there. You know, and
so you always work online, or you do also on-site experiences?
Yeah, that's the tricky thing of living in France with an English network and a Dutch background. So far, I have done most of my things online, and the things I tried to organize in person haven't really taken off. So they were too far, they were too remote, they were too long, they were too anything that didn't work.
Okay.
So I have hosted beautiful dance workshops before I went self-employed, but that was pre-COVID and pre-Brexit. So it's a kind of feels like this whole landscape has shifted, even in these 3 years. So I'm really looking for places where I can bring this center, and maybe where it finds roots in the physical world. You know, like I would love to have a place where it lands and where there is, you know, place to do a sweat, place to do a ritual by the fire, place to swim in the river, you know, those kind of, that would be a lovely kind of next kind of 5-year plan maybe to grow into or grow towards, but that isn't there yet. Yeah, so I'm teaching my first live Qigong workshop in the Netherlands in August. So that is it's kind of a festival with lots of other teachers.
Mhm.
But so far, that seems the first thing that is landing. That is
Okay.
interesting. So the kind of bringing the ideas down from the imagination into the physical reality. What do people want?
Mhm.
What do they come for? What do they want to do in their weekend or in their holiday? Or
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, the Qigong that is the biggest thing I do. That is all online, and people either really love it or they say, no, I want to practice in a group, in a room with people that I can touch.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
it also has advantages because you don't have to leave your home. You can
Mhm.
slot it in, don't have to travel. Yeah, so there's both advantages and disadvantages. So
Yeah,
yeah.
indeed. I think my school. I think I know someone in Angers, which is close by your. I think from my school.
Oh
Is
yeah.
teaching. Yeah,
Okay, or maybe I can check him or her out. Yeah, that'd be
yeah.
nice. Yeah. Yeah, so in terms of yeah, I don't know, possibilities for collaboration. I don't know if you are into that or you're really kind of working with your book and you're speaking to your book and giving presentations perhaps, or is there a kind of wanting to invite people into an experience
Hmm.
based on your 10-year journey?
Hmm. Well, I'm open to collaboration. I mean, I'm a bit more and more invited to offer some experiential, yeah, aspects of my work in kind of leadership training, etc. Promoting also my book. My main work is with the Conscious Food Systems Alliance. That's where we had someone connecting us, and it's a work with the United Nations Development Program focused on the inner dimension of the transformation of food systems. And yeah, so it's an alliance, so everybody is welcome to register and then connect with other people and make that kind of transformation work, be part of that movement. So yeah, that's what we're doing at the moment.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, and that's international and has different seed groups, I think, no?
Yeah, it's global, and we have people, I think, in more than 80 countries, if I remember well. And we are trying to support them to self-organize.
Yeah.
And sometimes having some collective events. We have a retreat next week, starting in Plum Village
Mhm.
for 1 week, so that people can connect with each other, and then they are free also to collaborate, develop programs together, etc. But ourselves have yet limited capacity, to fund specific training gatherings, etc. But at least it's an opportunity for all these people to connect and collaborate. So you're very welcome also to join.
Thank you. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. I know our mutual connection is going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed, she's coming. She's coming here. So I think that will be the first time we do that for 7 days in Plum Village. It's a Plum Village retreat, but focus on food and farming with the Happy Farm of Plum Village. So we are really looking very much forward to, and hopefully it's a great opportunity to spend time together as practitioner, as human beings, and out of this quality time, out of this experience, our assumption is that this can be also the basis for much deeper and meaningful collaboration.
Brilliant. Yeah. Wow, I wish you a really beautiful and fertile time together. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Eileen.
Yeah, and thank you for your time. It was really lovely to connect and go a bit deeper.
Thanks, likewise. I appreciate, and yeah, maybe we can stay a little bit online after this conversation and checking about some contact for you.
That would be lovely. All right. Thank you so much, Thomas.
Thank you, Aline.
Next meet.
Yeah, likewise.
Bye.
Bye.